men will say, usually they won't say it, but there's this phrase that they often are thinking, and sometimes they'll say it, I'm a grown-ass man.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. So happy to introduce a new content expert to Second Act, couples therapist and author, Dr. Ramon Presson. Ramon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Silk. I appreciate the invitation. So I've been looking forward to this time together.
Oh, me too. Me too. You have been a couples therapist for over 30 years. You specialize in couples communication, and you're the author of, I love this title, When Will My Life Not Suck? Good topic for us here. I think we should do a whole other segment on that. And you've co-authored and worked alongside with Dr. Gary Chapman, who is, of course, best known for the 5 love languages, probably one of the most used relationship books of all time. So my point here is to our audience, this is your wheelhouse. Right. What I really want to focus on this segment is what men wish women understood and what women wish men understood. Where does it all go wrong? And today, let's talk about, why is he not happy? What do men wish women understood?
I think because men think that women are a great mystery, or they think they've got them all figured out and they don't, or women find men a great mystery, or they think they've got them all figured out, and vice versa. I like how it was a dating couple that engagement just kept moving further and further, or they get closer and it would delay. And one time she said in the session, I don't understand. It's like I've given you the owner's manual, the operator's manual in the glove compartment to what I need and respond to. And I thought that was just a great way of playfully, saying, I'm not a mystery. I'm not trying to be a mystery. This is kind of how I tick. Yep. This is what I respond to. I'm not that complicated.
I think both sides, or at least that's what I hear on this channel, is like, it's not this hard. I know as women, we say that, and I think, yet it is. We just don't get it. And I know one of your points here that you have in one of your chapters, in I think it's an upcoming book, is that men need to feel competent, that women make men, and we maybe not even aware of it, that we make them feel incompetent. Let's talk about that.
Well, keep in mind that when there's a deep need of really any kind, there's usually going to be a corresponding fear. For men in relationship, men, one of their greatest core needs is to be recognized as competent. Another word might be trusted, and we'll unpack that a little bit, but there's actually 2 corresponding fears. One is the fear of being criticized, and the other fear is being controlled. So the need to be recognized as competent, the corresponding fears of being criticized and or managed or controlled.
So women women tend to criticize maybe when we are don't mean to. I think you said here that men don't mind getting input, but they don't want to be told how to do it. Like, tell him what you want, but not how to do it.
One of the things I say to guys is that, gentlemen, women are often, usually this is coming from a place of, I want to be helpful. They're not intending to be, and not even thinking this is being critical or corrective or controlling. Usually for a woman, I believe that this is coming from a place of, I want to be helpful. And again, the thing for us as guys is we want to say, I got this. Let me handle it. I like what John Gottman, one of the heroes in our field, that a complaint is really a wish or request in disguise. A complaint is really a wish or request in disguise. The more, and this is true for men and women, the more that we can express a concern or a complaint as a wish or request, we reduce the defensiveness of our partner, and we're more likely to get what we want or need through expressing a wish or request than through complaint or criticism, because criticism tends to elicit a defensive response. One of the things I hear oftentimes from women is them saying, you know, I say this to him, I make this suggestion or I say this, and it's, yeah, he can't take constructive criticism. He just gets so defensive. Our nature is, when something sounds critical, that sounds, to the lizard part of our brain, the more primitive part of our brain, that sounds like judgment or attack. And I'm quick to say that doesn't mean I've got to, you know, I've got to walk on eggshells and I tiptoe and I've got to say things just right. But I do say, you know, if in real estate they say, you know, it's location, 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 I say in couples communication, it's presentation, presentation, presentation.
How
The words do matter.
Yeah. Well, going back to criticism too, and what you said about Gottman, and you're a level 2 Gottman therapist, aren't you? Yeah, which is for those who are in this field know how you know special that is. But that contempt starts with contempt is a relationship killer, and that criticism is really how contempt is bred, and that's something that I think as women, you know, we need to understand, especially when it comes to men who don't want to be criticized. When we like to, you know, talk and maybe tell you what to do, again, to your point, the way it's delivered is not necessarily the way it's received, right?
Right. Yeah, and then often what happens is then in response, you know, the fight or flight response, and frankly, after a couple's been together for a while, usually there's going to be more of a fight response. And so now we're really off to the races and what Gottman calls a counter complaint. So I hear a complaint, I hear a criticism. Well, back at you. You know, well, you do the same thing. I'm going to come back with probably one or two things. Well, you do the same thing, and I'll give you an example. Or, well, let me tell you something you do that bothers me. One of my greatest challenges, Silke, is getting couples to stick to one topic in the present, because they will tend to go to, in the counter complaints, multiple topics, past, present. And I say, well, no wonder you have trouble resolving that. You know, it takes an air traffic controller. There's so many planes and topics in the air. How could you possibly land this discussion, this argument well, when there's all these planes? Almost, you got almost thinking, instead of airline, it was like fighter jets in the air. So, you know, one of the takeaways I hope people, you know, just as a side comment, no extra charge, commit yourself as a couple to sticking to the presenting topic, the present, and the singular topic.
Well, and I don't want to pick on women, but we tend to be the ones that send all those fighter jets up there, because don't men tend to shut down when we want to keep it going?
Right. You know, you mentioned Gottman, but what he's probably best known for is what he calls the four horsemen of the apocalypse of relationship. Begins with criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and lastly, stonewalling. His research indicates that probably 75 to 80% of stonewallers are men. And here's the thing then, that when a man stonewalls, just shuts down, a woman is going to experience that as disconnection. And here's the cycle, is that, and I say to men, guys, when a woman feels disconnected, she's going to let you know it.
Yeah. Well, and recognizing it. I mean, you know, when we talk about the application of all the, you know, the theories, the practice, the research, it all makes so much sense. Yet somehow we forget when it comes, you know, to actually applying it, you know, in a relationship. Asking that question, if I ask that question, you know, why is my guy not happy? What is there a short answer to that?
Well, one of the places I would suggest that a woman, just sort of, I call it interviewing yourself.
Mhm,
When I make a statement or ask a question,
mhm,
that might sound to him like criticism or control. Is there anything about that that could sound mothering?
mm.
I find this is an interesting statement. Well, oftentimes men will say, usually they won't say it, but there's this phrase that they often are thinking, and sometimes they'll say it. I'm a grown ass man. I'm 64 years old. I'm a grown ass man. I'm not sure why men go to the maturity of their backside to explain explain that. But it's a way of saying I'm competent enough to handle this without being managed, given unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I tell you, in my relationship, Raymond, is I've really had to pay attention to that coming out of my marriage, where I realized that I was constantly criticizing. But after a long time, of being just annoyed with this man, it just kind of where it stayed. We never broke that cycle. I don't think we ever could have, and it's not really what the conversation is about. But I know now that I'm in a loving, great relationship, I do, I have to be careful that I don't, if we're doing something or trying to get something done, that I don't question how he does it. Even if I know I can do it better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is for women to understand that. And that's not a bad thing. It's not, you don't have to walk around on eggshells, just become aware of it.
One of the things you and I have talked about is the fact that, all right, good for men, for women to be aware of that. At the same time, I say to men, that doesn't mean she has to, endorse, rubber stamp, cosign on anything you say, do, want to do. She's not, doesn't mean that she's a yes woman. She shouldn't have to walk on eggshells. That is manipulative. Mm-hmm. If you position her in a place where she's afraid to express a concern, a reasonable concern, in a gentle, appropriate way, and you respond badly, that is 100% on you, guys.
Yeah, you reference in that chapter, is funny, a cartoon where the couple is stuck in the water with the sign that said what bridge is broken, or I don't know, something. Go ahead.
Yeah, the car, apparently in the cartoon, it's like half submerged in the water. They missed some turn, and the front half of the car is in the lake, and she says, yeah, I saw the bridges out sign, but I know how much you don't want to be told how to drive, so I didn't say anything.
Oh, I laugh so hard whenever it's true. It's for me, it's the awareness of what, every single segment that I do, and like, today with you, if there's just a little gem in there
Mm-hmm.
that sparks something that can change the course or whatever cycle or spiral, as you referred to, that you're in, that can help, because ultimately we want to be happy. We want our relationships to work. We don't want to feel like this. What can women do to not undermine a man's competence?
In addition to wanting to be recognized as competent, mm-hmm. what we as men respond to, and again, that doesn't mean that women don't want and respond to the same thing. We want you to be proud of us. Mm-hmm. There's still this little boy in us that is like showing off on the playground and hope that you notice. And whether a man's love language is words of affirmation or not, for him, words are powerful. And the words of affirmation, you always do a great job of that. You do a good job. So not just the absence of critique, but the presence of appreciation. I had one guy in a session say, I'd like to hear it occasionally when I get it right or I do it well.
I think if I remember right, you said a key sentence is, I believe in you, that men mm-hmm. want women to believe in them. And if that hit home with me, it's like, that's easy to do. You can, I mean, unless you're just, in a relationship that's you want out, you're going to find something that you can say, you know, whether it's work related, whether it's, gosh, I don't know what it is, but believing in someone, that's
Yeah.
pretty strong.
Yeah. And for us as guys, that is especially powerful because we're doers, we're fixers, we're performers. You know, we want you to be proud. We want to be like your hero. And it doesn't mean, well, men want to be believed in, not loved. For us, that's one of the ways that loving us is expressed, is that, you know, that she believes in me. I don't know who wrote the Kenny Rogers song, she believes in me, but whoever wrote that gets it.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, at least for me, from our conversation, is again that focus on competence and not undermining competence, and showing when you can open a focus on believing in your guy. Raymond, is there anything else that you want to add before we close?
Yeah, and again, I've said, you know, how a number of these things really apply to both. If the average couple were to reduce the expressions of criticism and complaint and increase the frequency, the ratio of appreciation and affirmation, I might be out of a job. That sounds so simple, but oftentimes it's the simple things that are very profound and that make a difference.
I totally agree. And that's why I wanted to keep re-emphasizing that. We'll link to all your information and your book, When Will My Life Not Suck? It's a great read. So thank you again, and we'll see you on our next segment on Second Act TV.
All right. Thank you, Silke.